you want to hand me that sheet?
Jeff Slauson here from 19 News Now at the 19 News Digital Desk. We're going to be bringing you live now to a conversation with Governor Mike DeWine as he updates on violence prevention efforts here in the state of Ohio. Now, you may remember the Violence Prevention Act. This is something that the governor had talked about extensively and had started to provide access and resources to. He's now speaking from the Garfield Heights Police Department about this and potentially what new funds could be coming to the police department.
What you're seeing, I think that went back to, I'm looking at the date here, August, I think, in 2022.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
That sounds
Yeah.
right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'll give you a little overview of everything.
so good, yeah.
So, kind of in 2020, the deputy chief and I were looking to find a way to reduce crime, as big of a broad of a topic as that is. We set out to put together a task force outside of patrol, outside of the detective bureau, to address violent crime in Garfield Heights. We needed 4 officers to do it. We met with the mayor, and he was very gracious about that. So over the next 2 years, we started beefing up our officers to try to get to this task force. It took us about 2 years to get the 4 officers. That took us to 2022, at which time the ARPA Violence Reduction Grant came out. Right at that time, we were getting our officers together, so it couldn't have been better timing for the money. We were awarded just over $1.3 million, and with that, we started our Targeted Enforcement Unit, which is a task force specifically there to address violent crime in Garfield Heights. Along with that, we found we were going to need a lot of resources to aid these officers in their investigations and everything. So I'll give you kind of a breakdown on how we spent $1.3 million.
So Chief, what's your population?
We're at 28,000.
Okay.
9,000. And we currently have 54 officers on the force. So with that, the big chunk of, we got retention bonuses for all of our officers and our dispatchers. We were able to give everybody 10% of their salary as kind of a incentive to stay and a thank you for doing what they do. You know, when we put in for the grant, we had 54 officers and 8 dispatchers, and today we have 54 officers and 8 dispatchers. So to me, the retention did exactly what it was intended to do.
Yeah.
From there, we also got a flock camera system, the license plate reader system. So we have 19 cameras throughout the city that record license plates, and we're able to aid in our investigation for these guys. Since that's been operational since June of this year, we've had 20 leads that resulted in 14 arrests just from using the cameras. We also were able to upgrade our city surveillance cameras. So at 9 intersections throughout the city, we're going to have basically the entire intersections covered with cameras. We're very fortunate to have our own dispatch center here. They sit right down the hall. These cameras are monitored 24 hours a day by our dispatchers. They can view live, they can go back. So if anything, crime happens in this area, there's any information we have to obtain, they go right into the cameras and they can see it in real time. Very beneficial for investigations. We spent a little bit on, we partnered with LexisNexis for an analytics software. So this is basically their virtual crime center, which takes all of our CAD information, all of our calls for service, and twice a day dumps it into this program, and it can give us any kind of report we want. Hotspots in crime, what trends we're seeing, you know, days, times where all these crimes are occurring, and it really allows us to allocate our resources accordingly. That's kind of the whole idea behind this, is we didn't want to just throw police on the street.
Sure, right.
We wanted to be a little strategic about it. Our drone program really took off with this money. The DC can tell you a little bit about our drone program.
Yeah, so currently we have 6 aircraft that we're utilizing. We have 2 large ones that have thermal capabilities, spotlights, and speaker capabilities, and we have smaller ones we're able to insert into structures, maybe with a barricaded subject or something like that, and that way we can identify where someone might be inside the structure and safely approach it, analyze the situation before we're putting any manpower in harm's way by doing such. It makes it safer for us, and it makes it safer for the suspect too. So it's been very successful to the point we're starting to see other agencies in our area really starting to have interest in the program and what we're doing, and growing the program for themselves too.
And I did forget, with our crime analytics software, there's a component where the citizens can go on our website and they can see all the crime data in real time. So they have access, you can filter this.
Oh, wow.
100 different ways. So all of our calls for service, our incident reports get uploaded. You know, it's a real big thing for us is transparency, because we get so many good tips from our citizens. So they're a lot, they know their neighborhoods, they know who's supposed to be there, not supposed to be there. We get great tips from this, so we update all of our information on there so they can see it, which has been great. And then the last chunk is.
I'm gonna walk over and look at that.
Sure.
Sure. So show me where it shows up there.
Carlos, Sarge, you want to show them?
Yeah. So right now, we're running a report for stolen autos and where they're being recovered at. So obviously, stolen cars are a big issue in the city. It's a decent-sized city, and you got a couple officers, patrolling the streets. And what direction do you point them into? Should they be over here, over here, over here? It's a decent amount of area to cover. So with this, it's got a hot spot right here. This is where we need to focus our efforts on enforcement and being proactive.
So that's where you've seen the most.
Right, kind of like a weather map. This is a hot spot right here. This is the most condensed area that we have an issue with stolen cars. So that's where we're going to focus our efforts on.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah. And this is available to the public.
Yep, it's on the city
Great.
website.
I think it's great.
Yeah. And then, sir, the last chunk of money, our targeted enforcement unit has 4 officers. We were able to cover their salaries for a whole year, which was so important because when you do a program like this, it's got to be running for a period of time to work. Our fear is we move them over and then one of our officers gets hurt, we have to reallocate them somewhere else and then the program kind of dies. So having their salaries covered for a whole year, that was like the last piece of the puzzle to get them started. So they've been running for about 15 months now. It's really data driven, it's all based on analytics. They try to get ahead of these crime trends. They try to, basically subject can be linked to 100 different people, and the LexisNexis will attach to family members, friends, acquaintances, all those things. And we've had some success with it. I'll pull up the next thing. So in the 15 months since TEU has been here, we've seen a 33% reduction in these major violent crimes versus the 15 months before they started. So you'll see basically crimes are down all along the board, and I mean homicide, robbery, drug crimes, burglary, weapons, assaults, motor vehicle thefts and crimes. Again, a 33% reduction in 15 months, which we're just
That's
thrilled about.
significant. That's very significant.
Yeah, for 4 officers, so there's been a lot of studies in policing. If you put 4 officers on the typical department, you can expect like a 3 to 5% reduction in crime. Well, by doing it targeted, by being specific with it, we've been able to do a little bit more than that. So we're really happy with that. But we got a lot of more work to do. Obviously, there's still crime up there, and we have a lot of plans for the future on where we want to go with this stuff. But that was how we spent our 1.3 million, and it was very helpful.
So let's go back to the 4 officers. Go back and tell me how they interface with the rest of the department. How does that work?
Okay, so they're a separate unit, but Sergeant Carlos Crespo is in charge of the unit. He's the man to talk to.
So we're a bridge between patrol and the detective bureau. So the issue with cities that have high crime is that our officers are kind of just going call to call, putting out fires as they can. There's not a lot of time to really investigate things.
Sure,
or
right.
be proactive, and against crime. With us not having to answer calls, our only job is to be proactive and target these issues that are reoccurring in the city. We have the time to do that, where patrol doesn't. We have the ability to take tips from patrol about problem areas and address those. And we have the bridge between the detective bureau to the patrol.
Okay, but so what's the difference between what the 4 do? What do you call this unit?
Targeted enforcement unit.
Okay, your target enforcement unit. What's the difference between what they do and your detective?
So the detectives pretty much just investigate crimes. We're proactive. We go out there and make arrests.
Okay, all
Of
right.
individuals in the city.
For the detective bureau, patrol will take a report. Let's say it's a shoplifting. They turn it over to the detectives, and they try to piece it together after
Sure.
the fact. Whereas these guys, we're going to go, hey, we had a shooting last week. We want to know who did it. Now they start doing their investigations. They dive into a bunch of, they get on there, they find acquaintances, they solve the crime, and then they make the arrest. So it's a little bit of everything kind of attached when he says, little detective bureau, little patrol.
Yeah, we're out there being proactive. These areas that are high in crime, we're focusing our interdiction efforts out there. So that instead of being reactive to crimes after they occur, we can be proactive and try to make arrests, try to make these numbers go down.
And we've really found that a small percentage of the population is committing a large percentage of the crimes. And that's why kind of just tossing police out there doesn't necessarily reduce crime. You have to target those people that are key, because it's the same group.
So no matter where I go, it's the same story, every city. It's a relatively small number of people that are committing the majority of the violent crime. We did a study way back when I was the Attorney General. We got a professor from Ohio State do it. We went back to I think it was 1977, every felony charge, then within that looked at the violent felony charges, relatively small number of people. Just every community, nothing ever changes. So what you're doing in targeting them just makes sense. I mean, that's how you get the most bang for the buck. That's how you get the most safety for the people in the community.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, it just makes sense. It really
Can't
does.
argue with the numbers either.
No, you got good results. Andy, you got questions as we go through here?
Well, one of the things I want to point out, Governor, for you is as we talk and as we've looked at what they're doing here, first of all, it takes the support of a mayor. They got to have, this unit has to have the flexibility and the support from the governing agency that oversees the police
Sure.
department. So they clearly have that here, but really what you're seeing here is the blueprint for modern policing. And so first of all, it's data driven. You heard the chief say that they're not just throwing officers and money at the problem, they're being very strategic about understanding what the problem areas are, and then focusing their resources in those problem areas. So it's data driven. Second of all, it's proactive and it's non-traditional. So you have a unit of officers that are freed up to be flexible, and they can get out there, they can be proactive, they can look at the data and work in these problem areas, and they can interact with the community. One of the things we talked about is they don't wear the traditional uniform. They don't look like the traditional police officer, which again gives them some flexibility and the ability to interact with the community in a way that a uniform officer may not be able to. People in the streets a lot of times won't talk to a uniform officer because they don't want to be labeled as a snitch or anything like that. So again, the flexibility to go in kind of plain clothes and non-traditional uniforms and be proactive is part of what they're doing. And third, what you see is they're leveraging technology. Again, they're leveraging the analytics, they're leveraging the flock cameras, they're using the drones, and really the use of the drone is it's aviation. You know, we at the patrol have the aviation, we have the helicopters, so we can send those helicopters to Cleveland to work in the 4th District. The smaller agencies can't afford that, and what we see a lot of times is these smaller agencies coming in and using these drones the same way that we use the helicopters in operation. Again, it increases officer safety, it increases public safety. Now there's limitations to it because you've got to be line of sight and all of those limitations, but it is, what you see is a progressive and proactive attempt to really, this is intelligence-based policing at its best. As we talked about, look, how can we use the lessons learned here and what they're doing here to bring other agencies who have the same problems along, who may want to do something like this along. And I think really, because to the chief's credit, they were moving in this direction before the ARPA money came.
Right.
The ARPA money allowed them to basically
Move faster.
move faster, enhance what they were doing. So I think they've developed a really good blueprint for how a mid-level or mid-sized agency with these types of problems can address these problems.
So tell me a little bit more how you use the drones, how you guys use the drone.
So the drones come up in many different ways. A lot of times we're using them for searching for subjects who may have fled from us. You know, obviously, if you're talking, we have a small amount of people. If they're committing these crimes, if we can take them off the streets with the utilization of the technology to locate them when they're running from us, it allows us to go out, search using thermal capabilities, you know, optical capabilities, which we can't, you know, get close to someone, and now we can identify this person that has run from us, and then work our officers into that person, take them in custody on our terms in a safe environment. Again, it's safer for us, it's safer for the subjects, yes. And so, you know, and then, you know, we can slow down the timetable with stuff where, you know, when someone's actually running, it becomes evolving quickly and stuff, so
I mean,
we can slow it down.
as we found with the helicopters, it's safer for the officer on the street because
Yep.
you got eyes up and down.
Yep.
And then the clearing the houses with the smaller one.
Yeah, we've utilized, I'm associated with the SWAT team, we've used the small aircraft to go in prior to making any entries into any type of barricaded subject. We will breach a door or find an open window, and we will allow the aircraft to go in first, clear it, looking for anyone that may be in an
Yeah.
ambush position for us.
Sure.
And then we'll obviously try to make them come out. We can assess the situation internally, maybe identify weapons or maybe even booby traps or something that be set up into the structure also. So we'll go through and search that. Dogs also, we want to look out for the animals and stuff too. Identify any threat that's there for the officer and or, the subject. So we'll put the aircraft in there first and we'll clear the building, prior to that, us making entry, and we can then slow everything down and know that they're, we're not coming into some type of ambush and that type of setup. So
That's
it's been
great.
very advantageous for us.
Very great.
Governor, another thing that the chief in this department has done very well is utilize the NIBIN technology. So when they're out there and they're recovering guns, they're proactively getting these guns into NIBIN. Again, that's another tranche of the ARPA spending went to increase the capacity of the NIBIN program. You guys take yours to Richfield, correct?
Richfield, every casing we get, everything we get goes down to Richfield. Yep. And so we've gotten hits.
Yeah,
Quite a bit.
we use Richfield predominantly. Now they have that CGIC that we've been using. If we need something really fast, we need a fast turnaround for the investigation. We have a different avenue with that CGIC. We can get results back faster if we need an arrest warrant quicker. It's been very beneficial.
It's been nice. It's been 15 months, and we've learned a ton in the 15 months. So that would be our hope, is if any other agency wants to start something similar, we've kind of gone through.
They can build on what you've learned.
We've gone through the growing pains.
Yeah.
There are things we set out to do, and we did them, and they were completely ineffective. There were other things we didn't think would be effective, and now we're rolling with them. So the big thing is partnering with these other agencies. They work hand in hand, the FBI, the ATF, the DEA. There's not a little bubble around Garfield Heights. These criminals, they tend to leave, or they're other places. So these partnerships they've been building with the federal agencies and the local, it's been fantastic. That's really been paying off.
And our community has really supported it. We actually have a group of residents, they call themselves Neighbors on Duty. And they have a meeting once every couple months.
Quarter, yeah.
They invite the police, they invite the mayor, but these guys have been great. They show the drone footage of, actually going in and clearing a house. And then they actually show body cam footage of some of the things that they do. And what it does is it creates a sense of transparency of exactly what the police do here. And one thing I like about it is the fact that by showing this stuff, you're showing that we can make an arrest on our terms, not on the criminal's terms.
Mhm.
And that is huge to see that. I really think, and anything that these guys bring to me, I'm all open for the ideas. They just bought this technology called Grapple, where you can really stop a high-speed chase by taking out, it shoots a net into the rear tire and seizes that vehicle. I think that's great technology and it saves lives.
That's a big part of us is transparency. I don't think the public generally understands what we do or how we do it. Well, it's our job to educate them. I mean, the things these officers do every day, it's unbelievable. I couldn't certainly do it anymore. So when we show their body cam, we show arrests, we show how things are done. Now the public can understand from our point of view what we're doing. And again, I think, we have citizens police academies where we try to educate them and everything, but anytime you show them firsthand what an officer's going through, 99% of the time they're a lot more understanding and it makes
sure.
sense to
Well,
them.
sure.
So that's a big push on our
Yeah.
end too.
No, that's great. That's great.
And I can't thank you enough for awarding that grant last year. It was really helpful.
Huge.
Well, you used it well. You used it very well.
And like I said, for the future, this was phase one when we kind of laid this out 3 to 4 years ago. Phase two, there's some more community programs we want to start. Now we're targeting offenders and once the crimes are committed, but how do we get them to stop committing these crimes? Well, there's school programs, there's some community programs we really want to dive into next. And that really goes along with the expansion of this TEU unit to some community engagement officers and a couple other things. So we got a plan for phase two. We're going to start getting on that pretty soon.
Okay. So Andy, as we look at this from the statewide point of view, how do we, I guess inform other departments about how this has worked? Because we got 900 and some departments in the state, and they're not all your size, you know, a lot of villages, but also, you know, we got a lot of what I call kind of mid-sized cities, like Garfield Heights. I mean, it's a lot that are kind of in a similar situation, so.
So one of the things we've been doing over at OCJS is when we find a use of the ARPA dollars that we consider to be best practices, we're capturing those as ARPA success stories. So we bring a camera out, we have you tell your story, and then we push that out to other agencies. Really what we want is, we want agencies that are interested in this type of work to be able to reach out to you, to know what's out there, and to be able to reach out to you and be like, hey, look, walk us through the mistakes you made, walk us through the lessons learned so we don't make those mistakes. So we'll be coming out to talk to you and capture your story, and then we're going to push it to other agencies as well. Another thing that I noticed that you all did so well is when we put the RFP out for the violent crime reduction, we really wanted your request to be part of a system, how you were going to enact a process or a system to address violent crime. Not just, hey, we need this equipment, and we're going to put some cameras here and some cameras there, some flocks here or there, but we wanted to be part of a overall strategy for attacking the violent crime problem in your community. You did that. So really, again, as we look to take this to other agencies, you have hit this on multiple layers. So that is something I think that we can take out to other jurisdictions and say, hey, look, if you have flock cameras, here's how you might be able to maximize. If you have a unit that's addressing these issues, a Project Safe Neighborhoods type unit, look, here's how you might be able to maximize this. And again, it really works well for agencies your size. So again, the Middletowns of the world, the Springfields of the world, that, you know, I think that they could copy some of those stuff. So
And we need that, honestly. Like I said, there's no net around Garfield Heights, so my job's Garfield. Well, we push crime out of Garfield, well, it just goes into the neighboring things. But if the neighboring agencies are on board and they keep pushing it further out, obviously you can accomplish a lot more. So we'd be willing to, you know, you don't have to use our model by any means. It's just one way to do things.
Right.
But again, we've learned a lot. We've made a lot of mistakes. That's what we can share, and I think save these agencies a lot of time.
how is your collaboration with the surrounding jurisdictions? I know you talked about ATF, FBI, whatnot. How is your collaboration with the
Sorry.
So our biggest collaboration is those big three-letter agencies. They're a big help. But like Chief said, you know, when we push the crime out, it just goes through the surrounding suburbs. With the road guys, they have a kind of a schedule where they're here 2 days, they're gone 3 days. We're here a lot more, and there's always a point of contact for Maple Heights, for Euclid, for Parma to call us and say, hey, this guy's been in your city, he's in our city, what can we do together? So us being a point of contact for these other agencies
good, yeah.
has been a really solid resource.
And they have
Vice versa.
text groups, they have group me apps, there's a ton of different apps they're using to share information, and they're quite extensive, right, when you look at them? So, everything we get, we got a stolen car, we got this crime, it goes out, pretty much all the agencies in the areas are sharing data. And except, that's what we tend to lose with just the guys on patrol, because they're on a fixed shift, they're handling their calls and they're leaving, so this kind of, they can pass it along to TEU, and now they can distribute it a little bit better.
So your flock cameras have been up since June,
Yes.
and would you say you had
We had 20
leads?
leads, and they led to 14 arrests.
That's great. So are you sharing that flock information with any of the surrounding jurisdictions? And they are sharing theirs with you?
We share it with every jurisdiction in the area. And as far as other people sharing, it's up to them.
Right,
Most
I know.
agencies do though.
Right. What about the patrol? You share your information with the
Yeah,
Iowa
they
Patrol?
can log, everybody can log on to Flock and look at them in real time.
Okay.
I think I think there's 2,500 cameras that we can view throughout that's been shared with us and we share with them. So as that grows, I mean, that's a really great tool.
Is your flock set up with your dispatch? So if a stolen car goes by a flock camera, your dispatch says, hey, who's monitoring your flock, I guess? Is that
We do.
Okay.
Patrolmen do. On your MDT, you have another tab open for Flock.
So it'll give you a hit?
Yeah, a lot of guys have Apple Watches. It'll send a message to their Apple
Yeah, it'll
Watch.
ding on your watch if you set it up to do that. So
Perfect.
the really proactive guys, they're getting alerts all the time, and same with dispatch. That's, again, nice thing about having them here is they get it in real time, and that information's over the radio in seconds.
good? Karen, Nicole?
No, I think it's good. I think you hit the partnerships. I know as we start to roll out the state violent crime funding, which is in the budget, Governor, we plan on highlighting these folks. They're going to be one of our models that people could follow.
God help
Good.
us, but
Yep.
okay. We'll do our best.
But, it just makes sense as we put money out that if we have departments like yours that have tried something that works, you know what works, you know how it works, you know what doesn't work, and, to take that information and replicate it for Lima or Mansfield or Springfield or whatever, it just makes so much sense, and it makes us being able to target that money better.
Yeah.
And make better use of that money.
And like you said, things don't really change. It was the same 20 years ago, and it's the same now. The trends and the things don't change. So you can take at least a portion of this and apply it in other places.
It's really, though, it seems to me it's a combination of good old-fashioned police work, but the technology that we have today that 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you may not have had.
100%.
And using that technology and then, going in and putting the map up there and figuring out this is where this is occurring, this is our hot spot.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
I will tell you this, you're the first law enforcement agency that I've sat down with in a long time who hasn't said, we're dying for people. We're losing people. I mean, to hear you say you have the same number, you've been able to maintain the same number, is there anything specifically that you're attributing that to that we can take somewhere else, or?
I'll take that one because he's not going to brag about himself. The administration.
Okay.
The administration dictates the attitude of the whole department, all circles down from the top. If you have an administration that backs good cops who are doing the right thing, it translates down, it makes people feel valued, it makes them feel comfortable in their position here. That's, in my opinion.
Pretty good summary.
So look, to hold people in a place, you need tangible and intangible. All right, the tangible is pay, equipment, and training. The intangible is leadership, culture, esprit de corps, and it sounds like you guys are rocking on both sides.
I mean, go ahead. Mayor.
I was going to say, from my perspective, being the mayor, I always make sure that the residents know how much we appreciate, or how much I appreciate, all of our safety forces. And what these guys put up with on a daily basis. I'm not an expert on crime, but these guys are, and that's why I listen and I try to give them as much as they want. We had to stop at the armored vehicle, we couldn't get that. But I mean, I try to give them realistically what they want, and they do a great job. When you actually see some of the footage, it's unprecedented. What they can do with technology, and it saves lives. I'm convinced it saves officers' lives.
And from my point of view, you spend time and effort into hiring good officers. Once you get them, let them go be good officers. A lot of times officers feel handcuffed, we can't do this, we're kind of micromanaged, we're over. I picked you for a reason. Go do what you want to do, and these guys are fantastic at what they do. Again, I can't do it, so I find people that can do it, and they're smarter than me, they're better than me. Let them go out and be proactive, and they do, and they love it. And so I hope that kind of creates something where, again, they're allowed to be police, and that's what they signed up for. They signed up to help people, they signed up to get the bad guys, and at the end of the day, that's the job, and that's what they want to do. So if you let them go do that, you get a couple cars damaged here or there, or you get a little bit of stuff here or there, but in the end, it's well worth it, because like I said, the mayor said, I come in every day and I look through the reports and body cam, and I'm just like blown away by what they can accomplish.
So Chief, you talked about kind of the phase 2. Tell me again what that is.
Yep, so.
What's the goals?
The goals are, let's see, we want to get to these, and I'm not going to, the offenders before they become offenders, right? So many, such a big demographic of who we arrest is under 21 years old.
Yep.
A ton are under 25 years old. Well, how do we get to them before they get to that stage of their life, right? Now, that's not easy. Admittedly, that's much harder than taking 4 cops and putting them on a task force. But we really feel like with some community engagement officers and the school partnerships we've been building and the city partnerships, we're ready to tackle that. We weren't ready to tackle that, 2 years ago because it's such a huge undertaking. But with this running the way it is, I think now it's time for us to branch out and we can get these other programs in place. And just like I said, get to these offenders before they become offenders. That's the next step.
Yep. Well, great, thank you.
No, thank you.
Very much, appreciate the report, and
Sure.
we hope to utilize what you guys have learned and what you're doing, and see other departments, replicate that.
We're here to help whenever you need.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, sir. So I think.
Yeah, we'll just
open
go-
it up to the press.
Yeah, we can do, anybody in the press wants to ask questions, the chief can tell you, answer any questions.
Harry Boomer from Channel 19. How easily do you think this program can be replicated across the state of Ohio? And how soon do you look to replicate the successes of these?
Well, look, we have the ability to, it depends on the year, to put out some money. Some of it's federal dollars, some of it's our dollars to local law enforcement. And I think the more that we can inform local law enforcement as far as what works, the better. I mean, if you look at this, I'm not saying this was a cheap operation, but if you think about it, it's 4 people, backed up by a lot, but it's with a lot of analytics. But it's 4 people, and it's 4 people who are basically freed up to be able to do this work. I mean, my experience going way back as a prosecutor, just watching police departments and also as Attorney General, that man or woman out on the street, they're sort of one behind. I mean, they're always just trying to keep their head above water and respond to the citizens who need help, and do it in a timely manner, and don't really have time to do what this unit does. Your detectives, on the other hand, I mean, they're the ones who you expect on particularly your serious crimes, to be doing the long investigation. Well, this is something, as the chief has described it, is just different, but it's very proactive. It's very, very hands-on, and it seems to work. And I think it works particularly when they utilize the analytics to figure out where they pinpoint and where they target. I mean, again, I think it's just to me the most amazing statistic is that the violent crime is committed by a relatively small number of people. Violent crime is committed by a relatively small number of the criminals. So if you're trying to have the biggest impact, you obviously have to go and try to get these violent criminals off the streets. And we have seen that in Cleveland. We've come in, we've surged in Cleveland, and worked very, very closely with the PD. We brought 3, 4 of our agencies in, but PD is the lead, as they should be. But we've taken a lot of guns off the streets. We've taken a lot of violent criminals off. So it's that kind of attitude. We got to go where the violent criminals are, and we got to get them.
Chief, may I ask you a question? Sure. That is, it sounds like you're not using the broken tail-like theory, but you're targeting people who are the known criminals and trying to implement them rather than stopping people because they have a tail light out. Talk to me about that.
Well, again, if you're just undirected patrol, we'll call it, where you get an officer, you put him in a patrol vehicle, and he just patrols the streets randomly. Well, it's not hard to see him coming, first of all, if you're a bad guy, and it's just kind of taking a shot in the dark, so to speak. That's not effective at reducing crime, and that's been shown time and time again. Now, we need police on the streets, we need presence, we need to answer calls, but that's what our patrol unit's for. If you want to get into things a little bit deeper, you need time and you need resources, right? So if you have to surveil a house for 3 or 4 hours, your patrol guy can't do that. He's doing 10 calls in that time. So you simply have to just give them the time and resources and not bog them down with other things. And that's any resources. In the military, same thing. You don't put all your troops in one space. You have specialized units. Well, this is no different. So that's the idea behind it. Put everybody in their special assignment and let them do what they do.
Let me add on that a little bit. When you use analytics and when you use data to drive your operations in law enforcement, you actually cut down on over-policing, which is a great thing for a community. So for the most part, they know the small number of criminals. They know who they are. They don't have a right to possess a gun, and they're the ones doing the drive-bys, and they're the ones who are beefing with each other and shooting it out. So when something flares up, if they can concentrate on that small group that is shooting back and forth or causing this spike in violent crimes, and get them with a gun, and get them off the street and settle that down, again, it prevents over-policing of that entire neighborhood. It focuses on really the people that the citizens, the law-abiding citizens in that neighborhood want out anyways.
True, that's a good point.
Good. Anybody else?
For clarity, can everyone, I'm sorry, state and spell their name and position, everyone?
Sure.
Sergeant Carlos Crespo, Crespo.
Mayor Matt Burke, last name spelled Burke.
I'm the police chief, Mark, last name is K-A-Y-E.
Deputy Chief Merchant, Merchant.
Mike DeWine?
I'm Andy Wilson, Wilson, Director of the Ohio Department of Public Safety.
Governor, Tracy Krause from Channel 5. Do you think that programs like this are key to cutting down on the crime problem that we have? This coupled with technology, coupled with other task forces, does it take all of it as one to do that?
Well, I think what you're seeing in Garfield Heights is a coming together of a targeting based on technology. They know where crime has been occurring, and applying the most modern technology to that, and focusing on the most serious problems that the community has. I mean, to me, that is a very intelligent way to go at it. It's a logical way, but it isn't always how we always do things. And so I think with what you're seeing them do, and you see the results. I mean, you see the reductions. They'd like to see more reductions, but these are significant reductions. So they've got the results to show it. And look, you never have enough police officers. You never have enough money. You never have enough all the resources. So what do? You have to be smart about how you deploy them. And I think what you're seeing out of Garfield Heights is them being smart about how they're doing it. They've come up with this idea of a four-person unit that really is very proactive and really goes in and covers a hole that was not really being covered before. So it all just makes sense. Is this the only way to do it? No, it's not the only way to do it. Maybe other departments will find some other way to do it. But this is a way to do it, and this is a way that works here. And if it works here, there's no reason to think it won't work other places in the state.
Chief, the drive-by shooting that you had a couple of weeks ago that injured the baby,
Yes.
did this unit play a role in making the arrest so quickly? You all had suspects in custody within a few hours. Did they play a role in this?
100%. Now, everybody did their part. The patrol was on scene right away, but our target enforcement guys were, well, two of them were actually working different jobs. They were working side jobs in the city. They left that. They jumped in. And again, I was telling Director Wilson this earlier, patrol is tied up with the crime scene. In this case, it was going to be two crime scenes. They don't have the resources to go track down the bad guy, talk to people. That's where these guys come in. They found the victims. They spoke to the victims. They know the bad guys in the neighborhood, and they knew one street over, well, we might have some likely bad guys. They're able to be freed up to do the work of the investigation. So yes, they played a big role in it, and why we had 3 suspects in custody by the end of the night. But again, everybody does their part, and that's kind of what we want. Patrol's got their function, and it's a huge part, and then these guys are freed up to do the other part. So in that scenario, everybody was just top-notch. They did everything right, and it resulted in a good outcome.
Chief, I would say you leverage your technology as well in that case, correct?
Yeah, we have our flock cameras in the area for the vehicle. The drones were out, same thing. We had the drones before the SWAT team went in. So we used everything. And with the technology, the more you have, the better, because not everything fits every situation. There's tools in the toolbox, right? Drones, K9s, all these things we have. Depending on what the situation is, we got so many options. It's been great.
Governor, one more question. You work closely out of Columbus. We appreciate the fact that you know how to do the communities and talk to people. I'm hearing that we know who the bad guys are because they do this thing over and over again. I go to court an awful lot, and I hear judges sometimes are restricted by the law. I can only give him or her so much time, take him or her off the street for a certain amount of time. Is there any way to work with the legislature to pass more stringent laws or different laws to give judges
Yeah.
more leeway to keep these people off the street?
Yeah, I think the legislature certainly has done some things. And the one area that I really would like for the legislature to take action has to do with these violent criminals who are not supposed to have a gun, but who have a gun. And we need to increase the penalty for that crime. That is a very specific crime. It is having a gun when you're not supposed to have a gun, is the way I would explain it. It's called weapons under disability. But all that means is you've been told you don't qualify to have a gun anymore because you're a convicted felon and you're a violent felon. And so to be able to have that increased penalty will enable that judge to set a higher bond, and it will also enable that judge, once that person is convicted, assuming they are convicted, in that judge's discretion to send them away for a lot longer period of time. I mean, these are generally people who are repeat violent offenders. They're not supposed to have a gun. If we find them with a gun, we should be able to lock them up for a long period of time. The law today is just not tough enough in that area. So that's a specific area that I would like to see the legislature take action on. That would be very helpful.
I do have one other question. You mentioned guns a couple of times in your statement just now. What happens to the guns that are taken off the streets? Back in the day, they used to take them over to the steel mill and melt them down. What happens to guns that you take off the streets? Are they put back into circulation somehow? Gun shows, straw purchases? What's happening?
Up until recently, we would melt them down just like that. Now, some go back to the person if they're not convicted or if they're found guilty of a lesser offense. But we do sell ours back. And we sell them back to, licensed gun dealers, and they do end up back in circulation.
Isn't that counterproductive?
No, because these are going out to licensed, background checked individuals who are buying from a licensed gun dealer.
Then that gun is stolen, put back on the street.
No,
Another person should
So if it's a stolen gun, it will go back to the owner. Let me take that back. If it's a stolen firearm, it will go back to the original owner if we recover it, who the person who it was stolen from.
Where are the guns coming from?
I'm sorry?
Where are the guns coming from that are being used to commit these crimes? I mean, if you don't melt them down, which if it's melted down, it cannot be used again. If it's put back into circulation or whatever means, it could end up back on the street and taking somebody else's life. Why not just melt them down if the owner doesn't have proper authority to have it?
Again, that's a much larger problem than I can tell you where the guns came from, how they started to get here, but guns are out in the population. We are allowed to carry guns. It is part of obviously our rights, especially in Ohio, constitutional carry. So giving guns back to law-abiding citizens, I don't think is the issue.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks, everybody.
All right, and that wraps up this
Very
press
interesting.
conference here from Governor Mike DeWine updating on violence prevention efforts, specifically when it comes to the Garfield Heights Police Department. Now, I want to remind everybody that these grants that are done through the Violence Prevention Act need to be applied for. So Garfield Heights had to apply for this in order to be eligible for it. All right, we have our newscast over on 19 News. Started up about 15 minutes ago. We'll be going until 6:30, so we'll see you there over on CBS. For now, I'm Jeff Sauce with 19 News. Have a great day and great night. Much more to come, both on air and online.
19 News, now streaming on Sam.